Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about why I feel every 335i owner will enjoy the M340i. Alright, so if you're new to my channel, I have a 335i N54 2008 that is making well over 500 wheel horsepower. It has upgraded turbos and I've modified it extensively. I picked up a 2020 M340i for the channel technically, but I'm also enjoying this as my daily driver now. Having this car allowed for me to swap the manual on my 335i without worrying about my car being down. And I've had this since October 2019 and I've put about 5,000 miles on it since I got it. And I gotta tell you, I've really enjoyed this as a daily driver and also as a sporty car to replace the E90. Not that I've gotten rid of the E90, but I'll be honest, I wouldn't miss it a whole lot because of this car. So whether you have an E90 335i or an F30 335i, whether it's the B58 and the F30 or the N55 or N54, I truly feel like this car will make a really good replacement for all those cars for most people. I really like the N55 motor. It has a lot of character and it sounds great, but I've driven a few F30s and I know the suspension and whatnot and the steering feel and the overall hunkered downness of the car is a little bit less than the E90. The E90 was a little sportier and true to BMW's roots. I feel like BMW got some slack for that. So when they made the G20, it's like they didn't want to mess around again and they kind of went back to their DNA and made this car a little more fun to drive. So I've driven a G20 330i as well. I have a really quick clip of that car. I might as well insert it. So in my opinion, the concept behind BMW was you're always getting something somewhat sporty, even if you buy the base model. And I think that holds true. But in terms of intensity, I think they've turned the dial up a little bit with their M Performance line. If they're going to give you an inline 6 now, it's going to come in the form of an M Performance model in this new G20. So it's basically like 70% of an M car in a lot of ways and characteristic and even speed, because these run low 12s all day long. So I'm very happy with this car. I enjoy it quite a bit. You got all the infotainment features and technology of the higher end BMWs, but at a much lower cost. You got the dimensions of like an E39 anyway, so as you mature and get older and you need more space, you can still stick with a 3 Series and it evolves with you. So it's been very hot here. Lately it's been like 95 degrees in the peak of day, but I do have some footage of when it was nearly 100 degrees, me flogging the car a little bit, just to give you an idea of the character of the car. And you can kind of tell in the video, it translates that this car is super aggressive, super sporty, and fun to drive. So let's cut over to that now. as you can see, this car has tons of character. It's really fun to drive. It's fast. It's kind of like a Stage 2 N54 car, full bolt-on, running 93 octane, no ethanol. That's about the speed you'll have, to give you an idea out the box. Tunability wise, the 2021 Supra with they call it the A91 now has this motor, the 382 horsepower motor. So we have the Supra to thank for the tunability of this car, because before people pick up a bunch of these, there's already people going nuts on this motor in the Supra and pushing the limits. So, you know, 600 wheel horsepower on one of these, no big deal, not at all. So if you had a 335 E90 N54 and you made 500 plus horsepower on it and you're looking for an upgrade path, and you wanted a car that could replace that and make the same type of power sweat-free, then you didn't have much of a choice until 2020, until this car came out. Besides the 2016 and newer B58 powered F30, you couldn't really go nuts. And even that motor is quite different from this motor, even though they're related. So I'm happy to report that this car is a ton of fun to drive, and I can confidently tell you guys, like straight up, if you were to buy one of these cars to replace your E90, you'll love it. If you like the N54, if you like the torque shove, and if you didn't even like the way the N54 sounded, because it's alright, it's nothing crazy, this actually sounds really good, as you could hear by the clips I inserted earlier. And there's just a ton of potential with this platform. Speaking of which, I'm about to start doing that. You know, it's been long enough now that this car has been driven as it came from the factory. I really wanted to experience it that way. I got its first oil change done, but let's see what can be done with this platform now. This has the M2 competition limited slip differential, which is just insane, truly awesome. I don't have the adaptive suspension, so it's somewhat stiff but still comfortable out the box, but it's stiffer and more lively than the E90 335i with the sport package by far. So I feel like the majority of my viewers are E90 owners, and there'll come a day where they want to replace their E90 with something else, and I really think you should look at this car. And I really can understand why you may not want an F30 to replace your E90, but I think you'd be crazy to not want to consider this car because of the way it drives. Before I picked up this car, I really had to debate if it made sense to get this car, or should I get an F30 for the sake of doing DIYs and actually to reach a much bigger audience, because I know that a lot of people are going to want to replace their used car with a used car. I kind of gravitated toward going with this platform because of the potential of it. At the end of the day, a lot of E90 owners won't want to spend the premium to get one of these as a replacement, even as a lightly used car. Knowing that, even if this is a few years down the road for you guys, I can confidently tell you that you're going to be pleased with this car. This car has plenty of mojo. It's very interesting. I think it's pretty good looking. Alright, so now as a daily driver, I can put this thing in self-drive and have it drive for me without any issues. It will hold the lane. It just wants you to hold the wheel. That feature alone, and the fact that this has traffic jam assistant and you can basically have it drive 100% on its own as long as you're looking forward up to 40 miles an hour in a traffic jam, is really a lifesaver. It's really awesome. So what would you guys like to see with this car? What type of content do you think I should make with it? Do you guys have questions about it? I haven't really done much with it on the channel. I'm going to start to modify it now. We'll see what type of power we can make on the stock turbo. But yeah, if you guys had questions about the infotainment system, let me know. Do you have any questions about the self-driving or assisted driving? Are you in the market for a G20 and you're trying to decide between the 330i and the M340i? Let me know. Just to put it out there really quickly, the M340i is a lot more engaging to drive than the 330i. That shouldn't come as a surprise to you guys. So if you look up the reviews on the M340i, they're all pretty favorable. People generally like this car. So this is definitely no M car, but if you had to ask me, it really isn't that far off. Me personally, I've only owned 2 M cars, real M cars, and they were both E30 M3s, which is considered the ultimate M car to some people. But they have a special feeling in the way that the brakes, steering, and engine is set up. You know, there's just a different calibration to them. There's a liveliness to them, and it's deliberate. And it comes at the sacrifice of daily drivability. I think that's a safe thing to say. Now, I've driven an E36 M3, US based. I've driven an E46 M3. I've never driven an E90 M3. I've driven an F80 M4. And so, you know, I can confidently tell you that this car has 70% of the DNA of a true M car in the way that it's calibrated. When you put it in Sport Plus with Sport Plus traction and the transmission over in Sport mode, it becomes a bit of an event. And that's what you look for. So for this car to be called an M340i, I think BMW wouldn't do that and water down their brand unless they really made the car engaging to drive and made it something special. Most F30 335i owners and E90 335i owners will be pleasantly surprised because you're not just getting a good replacement for those cars, you're getting a lot of MDNA. I'm not one to care about bragging about having a real M car. At the end of the day, you know, that part of it I don't really buy into. I bought the E30 M3 because I love the way it looks and the way it drives. But at the end of the day, if you ever wanted to brag about owning an M car, of course that was the pinnacle. Let's take a quick look at the motor. Interior wise, if you've seen any of the newer generation BMWs, this will look quite familiar because it looks just like all new BMWs. You don't really get that sense of lower quality because you're in a 3 Series versus a 5 Series, etc. The materials are similar. When you close the door, you get a nice solid thunk. Quality is good. All right, guys, I can confidently tell you that you'll love the M340i if you have an E90 or F30 335i, in my opinion. If this is the first video you're catching on mine, consider subscribing. I do upload regularly. Thanks for watching.